Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, a series of random prompts based around cats. I'm doing the Loomis tag. So this tag was created by Loomis, one of the cats who lives with Andrew from the channel. It came from the page. Andrew posted a video on his channel a little while ago with a series of questions inspired by the various cats he shares his apartment with. And there's a prompt as well where you can add a prompt inspired by your own pet as well. So I'll be doing that as well. But let me get on with it anyway, because I'm conscious I'm probably not making any sense at all. I've tried to film this introduction about 5 times now, so I just need to get on with it. So let me tell you what the prompts are. Okay, the first prompt is Loomis, name the most chaotic book you've ever read. So for this one, I'm going to go with perhaps an obvious choice, but the book is John Dies at the End by David Wong, which is a really crazy book. So a glorious mix of kind of sci-fi, horror and comedy, very funny, deliberately very weird, deliberately very gross at times, but really, really entertaining. Just a really fun read about these two guys who kind of get wrapped up in kind of an interdimensional war, and all sorts of crazy stuff going on, but a great deal of fun. Next book then, or next prompt rather, is Nami, name the luckiest book you've ever found. So for this one, I'm going to go with Let's Go Play at the Adams by Mendel Johnson. So I had a copy of this when I was a teenager. I first read it back then. And it was one of those books that kind of stuck with me. So my copy and I parted company a long time ago. But I was kind of reminded of the book by something and really wanted to read it again. Now this was at the time, a few years ago, before the Paperbacks from Hell reissue had come out. And it was really difficult to get hold of the book. The book was out of print, very difficult to find a copy. So I set up, or very difficult to find a copy for a price that wasn't ridiculous. It was going for like kind of 40 quid. So I set up a save search on eBay and just left it. And eventually one of those big kind of booksellers on eBay that sell, thousands and thousands of secondhand books, one day listed loads of copies of it for like £3 each. So I ended up buying most of the copies they had. I bought multiple copies, one of which I've kept and read. The other ones I've used for like giveaways. I've given to people as gifts and things like that. So it was just too good an opportunity to pass up. So yeah, I bought loads of copies, but I didn't like profiteer off them. I didn't sell them on. I've used them for giveaways, and I think I've still got a couple in the attic actually. So maybe I'll do another giveaway soon. So yes, that's my luckiest book find, I think. Next prompt then is Wisteria, name a book that is best to snuggle up with. So I'm going to go here, not with a book, but with an author. Not that I'm saying I want to snuggle up with the author, but all of the author's books, I think, have this quality. That author is Becky Chambers. So Becky Chambers is kind of a very modern, very optimistic writer of science fiction who writes very much kind of character-based sci-fi that talks about human relationships and things like that. But her books have a lovely warmth to them that I just find wonderfully cosy. I always enjoy reading her books, and thoroughly recommend them if you want a kind of some feel-good sci-fi. Next prompt then is Claude, name a book that has the best adventure. So I'm going to go with a classic adventure writer here. So this is an author who my grandfather was a huge fan of, and I've read a few books by him and really enjoyed them. So the author is Alistair MacLean, and the book in particular is The Guns of Navarone, which is about a kind of group of Allied soldiers during the Second World War trying to take out this gun emplacement that's threatening like a shipping lane or something like that, if I remember rightly, on an island. But the book is just packed with adventure. And whilst it has got, kind of like gunfights and stuff like that in it, so much of the adventure comes from the physical environment. And I really enjoy that kind of adventure where, it's like people having to climb cliffs and stuff like that. So I love that sense of peril from nature, as well as from other humans. And The Guns of Navarone does a great job of kind of wrapping those things together. The next prompt then, so Jughead, name a book you love but no longer own. So I'm one of those people, and I think this is perhaps a typical trait of middle-aged, probably middle-aged men in particular, where there are loads of books from my childhood and teenage years, like Let's Go Play at the Adams, that I used to own and no longer have, and feel nostalgic for. And I've ended up reacquiring a number of those books over the last few years, and I've enjoyed reading them again. So I've got a new copy of, but don't have a copy of in the format I'd like, is Swallows and Amazons by Arthur Ransom. So this is a series of first in a series of children's books that I read when I was a kid, which are about like kids staying in the Lake District in Britain, and like going on the lakes in boats and things like that, just having adventures. And I really loved those books as a kid. And the particular edition I had of the first book was the one that was released to time with the movie. So there was a movie in the 70s. There's more recently been a more recent movie as well. But this one was clearly, because I'm quite old, was the 70s version of the movie. And I really remember everything about that book. I can really visualise the cover. I can really visualise the back of it as well, and the stills from the film that they had on it. So I've got a more modern version, a modern edition of the book, which I haven't got around to rereading actually. So I do need to reread that, but I do still kind of crave the version that I had before. So maybe I need to seek that out on eBay. Okay, so this is where I get to add my own prompt. So I'm adding the Venus prompt. So Venus is our cat, a very, very soppy cat. So she's a Selkirk Rex, which I think is a bit of a soppy breed. She's very, very affectionate and so she can definitely a cat who considers herself to be human, who considers herself to be part of the family, and is very loving and affectionate. She's also very, very optimistic. So Venus is a cat who always thinks that if she tries something again, it will work this time. It really does, because she's not the most... if you think of the term cat-like to mean, kind of agile and lithe, Venus is none of those things. So when she tries to do something that a cat should be able to do, she often struggles, but she keeps trying. So my prompt, inspired by Venus, is to name the most optimistic book you've read. And my choice for that is a non-fiction book. So I don't read an awful lot of non-fiction, but a non-fiction book that really had an impact on me. And that is The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. So Anthony Ray Hinton is an African-American guy who was falsely imprisoned. So in prison for a murder that he didn't commit. A terrible miscarriage of justice. He spent years and years and years on death row. But has come out of it just still so trusting and loving and willing to believe in the best of humanity, despite the fact that the worst in humanity stole so many years from his life. I think it's a wonderful book and a real inspiration to all of us to be better humans. So he was able to put behind him the terrible things that they'd done to him, and just move on with his life in a way that I really think is genuinely inspirational. So yeah, a wonderful book, and definitely worth reading. So time for me to tag some people. So I'm going to tag some people who I know have got pets. So I'm going to tag Michael K. Vaughan, MJ from the channel Reading This Life, and Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. So today's book is a cat-related book. That seemed appropriate. So it's Cat Out of Hell by Lynn Truss, and not, as I said when I first filmed this, Liz Truss, the failed UK Prime Minister. So no, Lynn Truss, who's like a journalist and writer, most famous for her book Eats, Shoots and Leaves, which is a book about punctuation and kind of grammar and things like that. So this is a really fun horror story. So quite creepy at times, quite amusing at times. Published by Hammer, the erstwhile British horror film production company, who now have been reinvented as a publishing company by the looks of it. But yeah, a really fun short horror novel with a fair amount of humour as well as some creepy stuff. So yeah, I had a good time with this one. So I hope you found that interesting. Let me know what your answers to these prompts would have been. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.